It's your boy Rebuke All Devils here to bring you another breaking news story. This story right here is coming from The Guardian, as we see right here. So if y'all want to support The Guardian, feel free to do so. We want to thank them for bringing this story. I think it was also brought to us by Joanna Walters uh, in New York and agencies. So shout out to Joanna for this story that we'll be touching bases on. Gun violence kills 160 as holiday weekend exposes tale of two Americas. With more than 500 wounded across the U.S., local leaders see racism and underinvestment at the root of the crisis. All right, here we go. A 6-year-old in Philadelphia, a 7-year-old in Chicago, an 8-year-old in Atlanta, a 15-year-old in New York, all shot. Community cries of enough is enough. Neighborhoods in some of the largest U.S. cities erupted in gun violence over the 4th of July weekend, killing an estimated 160 people and leaving more than 500 wounded from Friday night to Sunday. Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, declared a state of emergency on Monday after 31 people were shot and 5 killed over the weekend in Atlanta. He authorized 1,000 National Guard troops to protect state property and patrol our streets. But Chicago saw the worst violence in one of the bloodiest holiday weekends in recent memory, ending with 17 people fatally shot, including a 7-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy, and 63 more wounded. An increase of 5 shootings on the high figures that had marred the holiday weekend the previous year. Despite an effort that included an additional 1,200 officers on the streets and pleas from the city mayor, Lori Lightfoot, for residents not to reverse limited progress that had been made against the epidemic of gun violence. Lightfoot lamented the children whose hopes and dreams were ended by the barrel of a gun. And that's terrible, family. That's terrible. The city's south and west side have seen worse weekends this year. However, and a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old were killed during recent shootings. The rising violence prompted Donald Trump to write to Lightfoot and the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, both Democrats, accusing them of receiving more than $1 billion in special federal funding for anti-crime measures and coronavirus relief that was not being turned into results. Your lack of leadership continues to fail the people you have sworn to protect, the letter said. Lightfoot dismissed Trump's letter as all talk, little action. The shooting death of an 8-year-old girl, Cesaria Turner, in Atlanta prompted the mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, to call for justice while noting the shadow such street violence cast over the huge and largely peaceful Black Lives Matter protests against racism and police brutality. Enough is enough, Bottoms said. If you want people to take us seriously and you don't want us to lose this movement, we can't lose each other. The shooting happened near the Wendy's restaurant where a black man, Rayshard Brooks, was killed by a white police officer in June. She was only 8 years old, Tremaine Turner said of her daughter, Cesaria. Right now, she would have been on TikTok dancing on her phone, which here's a picture of the mother and her daughter right here to the left. May the baby rest in peace, and may the father give peace to the mother and the father of the child and their family members and the community. That is terrible. Atlanta police said 2 other people were killed and more than 20 injured in gunfire during the holiday weekend. In New York, a series of shootings on Saturday and Sunday claimed at least 9 lives and wounded 41 others in a rise in incidents in some neighborhoods. A 15-year-old boy was wounded in the Bronx, and I think it was last week. A 17-year-old basketball star that just graduated from high school like the day before or a week before, he was also killed. Had a scholarship to go to school and everything. It's just getting out of control, family. And in Philadelphia, a 6-year-old boy died of a gunshot wound amid 5 fatal shootings in about 5 hours on Sunday afternoon, police said. The Trace, a non-profit news website covering gun violence in the U.S., which tallied the weekend toll of shootings in the U.S., reported that preliminary research from the University of California, Davis, has found a potential link between the rise in violence and a surge in gun buying during the coronavirus pandemic of more than 2.1 million guns than usual between March and May. The Reverend Gregory Livingston, a pastor and civil rights leader who moved to New York last summer after many years running an anti-violence community organization in his native Chicago, spoke of Chicago going through absolute madness. But he warned that nationwide systemic racism that is not being addressed and the violent history of America that has not been reckoned with were dividing people and causing some communities to break down. Chicago is woefully a tale of two cities, and across the country, it's a tale of two Americas. Chicago is a very segregated city, and that legacy is part of what's fueling this horrific violence, Livingston told The Guardian. He condemned corruption and racism and said the pandemic and economic fallout had exacerbated inequality. The pandemic has been disproportionately hard on Black Americans already suffering economic and healthcare deprivation. Livingston campaigned strongly to vote out the previous Chicago mayor, Rahm Emanuel. Lightfoot has been in the position since May 2019 and has just appointed a new police chief. Lightfoot agreed with Livingston's point that a long history of segregation in Chicago and underinvestment were at the root of the explosion of violence. You have to give a sense of hope. You have to reach out to those young men on the corners who are the shooters. But it can't just be on the police and the city government. It's all hands on deck, Lightfoot said. And you know, we have to stop killing each other. It was a young lady that had a sign that said, if they kill us and we keep killing us, there will be no more us. And when you go back to the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 28, it says how his eye shall be evil towards his brother. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing our brothers killing each other. And that's just straight madness. It's stupid. She said of Trump, we are leading. He needs to take our lead and follow it. Well, if that's leading, I don't know what, I don't see how you leading and your city is having trouble like that. That's not leadership. You know, that's not leadership. Livingston called on Lightfoot to tackle racism and policing problems head on. There is an individual responsibility among those shooting, but there are also conditions that create a climate of violence, he said. There is a responsibility among those that are shooting. Quit shooting your own people. Quit terrorizing your own neighborhood. There should be protesters out there in the streets right now. I was talking to my girl the other day. We was talking about things like this. And she asked me, where's the anger at? Where's the Black Lives Matter protest at? So you just can't get out there and protest when the Europeans are killing us. You have to get out there and protest when we're killing each other. One of the 10 Commandments is thou shalt not kill. He accused the New York mayor, Bill de Blasio, of being scared of confronting racism in the New York Police Department. There is no courage in City Hall, he said. And he warned mayors across the U.S. that Chicago was the control for what would happen elsewhere this summer if inequality and the demands of protesters coast to coast since George Floyd, an African American, was killed in Minneapolis by a white police officer did not spur change. The White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, declared herself dismayed that she was not asked about the weekend shootings at her briefing on Monday, despite citing a doubling of shootings in New York City for the third straight week. All right, let's hear what she has to say about this. Multiple shootings in multiple Democrat-run cities such as New York and Chicago. Tragic loss of life, but not one question during the briefing. Let's hear what she has to say.
This president's focused on action. I'm a little dismayed that I didn't receive one question on the deaths that we got in this country this weekend. I didn't receive one question about New York City shootings doubling for the third straight week, and over the last 7 days, shootings skyrocket by 142%. Not one question. I didn't receive one question about 5 children who were killed, and I'll leave you with this remark by a dad. It broke my heart. A dad of an 8-year-old lost in Atlanta this weekend. They say Black Lives Matters. You killed a child. She didn't do nothing to nobody, was his quote. We need to be focused on securing our streets, making sure no lives are lost, because all Black Lives matter. That of David Dorn and that of this 8-year-old girl. Thank you.
Okay. And you know, I very, very seldom disagree with them. But right here, I agree with that. Because, you know, all lives matter. Like I was saying, one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not kill. So, you know, the gun violence has to stop from the police directed towards us, and the gun violence has to stop that's directly related to us killing one another. Journalists at the briefing responded that she had ended the 22-minute briefing and departed while many were still waiting, hands raised to ask questions. So, there you have it, family. You know, we have to get a grip on this. You know, it's out of control. You know, and it's directly affecting our communities. It's directly affecting our loved ones. And as a people, we have to come together and love one another. We have to rise as a nation, because we are the nation of Israel. We are Israelites by blood, by DNA. And we have to turn back to the law, statutes, and commandments and have love towards one another. Not all this envy, you know, and you hear these rappers always talk about shoot a nigga, do this, do that, and all this nonsense that's just exciting killing one another. You're not bad because you want to kill your brother. You're not bad because you kill an innocent child. You're not bad because you exploit your women, our women. Okay? Enough is enough of the foolishness. Because as a nation, some of our people are a joke. Pull your pants up, young men. Nobody want to see your underwear. No one want to see you behind. Quit selling poison in our neighborhoods. Quit selling crack to your own people. Quit selling heroin to your own people. Quit selling meth to your own people. Quit destroying your neighborhoods. Quit stealing from one another. Quit sleeping with your brother's wife. And ladies, quit sleeping with your sister's husbands. Quit going to the abortion clinics and killing your children. That's murder. If you don't want children, keep your legs closed. You see? Brothers, keep your penis in your pants. You know, it's time for us to stand up as real men and women of the Most High. And with that, I say Barak Atah to the nation and Shalom.